The Guardian is reporting on an analysis here that basically empirically measured Hillary Clinton's right-wing pivot in the general election, and it's sad. So listen to this. They say, quote, Hillary Clinton has dropped the words climate change from most of her public addresses since winning the endorsement of her party rival Bernie Sanders, according to Climate Home Analysis. During the last 6 months of Clinton's primary campaign against Sanders, the transcript of her speeches shows that she was talking about climate change at 1 out of every 2 speeches she gave. In 38 speeches since the general election, Clinton mentioned climate change specifically 8 times, which is once every 5 public addresses. So it used to be in 50% of speeches she would bring up climate change. Now it's 1 in every 5 speeches she brings it up, and when she does bring it up, she doesn't spend as much time on it. Okay, this is why millennials don't like you. This is why you're struggling with them. She naively thought, I got it on lock with that demographic, so they're done, now I'm going to run to the right. Well, come to find out, in the past month, new polling shows that she's hemorrhaging millennial support. 17 points she's lost among them. So now they're panicking. Like, what do we do? Okay, I don't know. Go out, she wrote an op-ed in Mike.com, basically pandering to them and saying, let me tell you what you've taught me. She went on Jimmy Fallon, although Donald Trump did as well. She's doing all of, like, the grossest things to try to appeal to millennials. I'm going to give a speech on the interwebs. You children and fucking millennials like that, right? Do you have time in between playing Street Fighter and drinking Zima? I don't know. I'm trying to come up with things from the 90s and the 2000s. Do you guys have time between that to possibly come and watch my speech? And everything's just panderfest all day long. And people, we see through it, Hillary. We're not like the older generation. I mean, it's sad to say, but it's true. The older generation, senior citizens, for example, they came out in droves for Hillary Clinton. Why? Because she represents that old-timey, old-school politician that they're used to. For us, we look at you and we see it's all an act. When we see you talk, we can basically envision the conversations you're having with your strategist behind the scenes, and we know it's all, how do I try to get these motherfuckers to vote for me without actually doing shit for them? So we see that now, and you know how you would be able to get more millennial votes? If you don't do the shit that you're just assuming is obvious that you should do, like the pivot. The pivot, I'm telling you guys, man, the pivot is something that's going to die. The general election pivot has to die. It's gonna. Because now, like, you think that when Hillary Clinton's campaign saw this article and this study, that they were happy about it? Like, oh, look, see, now they're measuring our pivot. That's lovely. No, they want people to think like, oh, I'm principled and this is what I've believed and said all along. But that when you actually start measuring it and looking at, you know, what issues she focused on, you go, oh, no, but you don't care about the same issues. Like, that's the thing that's so sick is if you really care about something, it doesn't change with the political season. You know what I mean? Like, Bernie Sanders would be saying the exact same shit he was saying in the primary if he was in the general election. Why? Because he actually cares about those issues. So when you do something as disingenuous as care about one set of issues in the primary, then pretend to care about a whole new set of issues in the general, like I said, you're building deception into your fucking strategy. So that's why we don't like you, man. That's why we don't like you. And stuff like this is inexcusable. Understand, Bernie Sanders said, we're going to treat climate change as a World War II level threat. He would say it on the fucking debate stage to Donald Trump if he had the opportunity to, and he would shame him for saying climate change is a Chinese hoax. Hillary Clinton, like I said, drops almost all references to climate change now because she feels like, oh, in the general, people don't care about that as much. It's a fucking super important issue. Even if that were true, which it's not, that people don't care about it as much. You should talk about it because it's incredibly important. But that's the thing, let me test the political winds. Where are they going? Oh, they're blowing northwest. Guys, run northwest. Like, that's what they're thinking. That's how they act. And it's so gross, man. It's so gross. Honestly, man, Hillary Clinton doesn't even deserve to win this election in a landslide. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a silly person. For the million and one reasons I've stated before, I know she's better than Donald Trump, okay? But she deserves, if anything, to just edge this out by the slimmest of margins. And hopefully, even though I don't think it would happen, look at that as a wake-up call. As like, oh my goodness, what the fuck? Really? That's how much I beat this monster, this buffoon by? And then maybe do some self-reflection. Again, it might be too little too late, and she's incapable of doing self-reflection at this point. But, you know, this is an old breed of politician that's dying off. And this is not something that's acceptable. This is not something we should all sit idly by as she keeps doing it. For fuck's sake, we can measure the fact that she cares less about important issues now that it's the general election.